Hi, everybody. This is Lindsay Falstick. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. Can everybody hear me? Can somebody get on the Q&A and just say if you can hear me? Thank you, DJ. Thank you, Sushi. Thank you, Emery. I am hearable. That's great. Okay, so the Q&A feature is live. And as you go, if you have questions or concerns, throw it on the Q&A. I have a helper here with me at home who is writing down names of people who ask questions and participate. And as we go through the night, we're going to be doing some drawings for gift cards that I will either let you pick up tomorrow if you're still on campus, or that I will send to you in the mail if you're already at home. Okay, so we're going to give it just a few more minutes because we have participants jumping in pretty quickly. And I know some folks are trying to figure out how to get Zoom to work on their computer and things like that. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes and then we will get started. I do have a question that just came in. Will this information be sent out or should we take notes? I am recording this whole session and it's going to be uploaded to YouTube, and then the link will be posted on the My Hanover housing page. And so you can go back and watch pieces of it if there are things you want to try to remember. But certainly if you feel like taking notes, that is okay too. All right, I'm hearing that there's a little bit of feedback when I talk, so I'm working on getting a mouthpiece that will help you hear me better. So we'll get started in just a minute. All right, I did get another question. We are going to go over how to apply for different kinds of housing. We're going to go over all of the different application types, and it is definitely different than how you apply for freshman housing. Pretty significantly different. So we will go over that, I would say about midway through the presentation. Another question just came in. Are we going to be talking about ESAs? We will just super briefly touch on that, but if you have additional questions about what we talk about in that section, feel free to email me and we can talk privately about any questions you have. Another question, how long do we think this will take? I'm hoping not too terribly long, but that will all depend on how many questions there are. I'm going to try to hold most of the questions once I get started until the Q&A part at the end. And so once we get to the Q&A part at the end, if you're like, I know what I need to know, you can go ahead and sign off, or you can stick around and see what those are. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody can see my screen, and we'll get going on this. So welcome to the housing selection webinar. We're hoping to answer as many questions as you might have about housing coming up, share information about what applications look like, what the different housing options are, so you're best prepared to go through this all online housing application process. So this is the first time we've ever had to do this. Like a lot of things you're going to be experiencing over the next several weeks, so there's going to be a lot of firsts for folks on campus. So this is the first time we've moved everything online, and so there's likely to be some kinks along the way. So if things come up and you have feedback for me, please go ahead and send that to me as things unfold. I'm hearing there's still a lot of feedback on my mic. Is that still the case? Is it terrible? Okay. Okay. I have my laptop in a little different position, so hopefully that will help. Okay. So we will go ahead and get started. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me well and get the information, because that's the most important part. All right. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is the new housing we're going to have on campus next year. We have, oops. Okay, we have newly renovated Garrett Street apartments. I'm going to show you some pictures here in a minute. But the Garrett Street apartments are on Garrett Street. Behind Science Center, there's a little road where faculty and staff often live. And there's 2 apartment buildings, 4 apartments each. And each apartment has 4 people living in it with a full kitchen and laundry. So the newly renovated apartments will be available. We are constructing brand new townhouses, and those are really close to Young House, but also near the corner of Garrett Street, kind of behind the Science Center. There are 3 townhouses available. I'll show you a picture sort of those in a minute. And it's 4 people per townhouse as well. We're also building a new house. It's on what's considered Clemens Street, on the little road that butts up right to the stadium. So if you walk down the little street and you run into the side of the stadium, that is where this house is being constructed. And it will house wellness housing next year. It's going to be a 12-person house with a full kitchen, laundry in the house, and it will be wellness housing. And we'll talk about wellness housing and what that is here in a minute. And then the other new type of housing is going to be our Alma Jean Prince multicultural housing. And Alma Jean Prince was our first African-American woman to graduate from Hanover College. And we are going to be having housing for multicultural students to apply for. And we haven't quite selected the location yet because we want to see what the interest level is and how many people before we pick the space, since it's our first year using that. All right, so these are pictures of the almost completed Garrett Street apartments. This is the renovated space. So if any of you have ever been in a Garrett Street apartment, these right here are in the north, or the south apartments, which are a little bit closer to campus than the north apartments. The north apartments currently have students living in them, and they'll be renovated over the course of the summer to look like this. What you don't see here is that there's also a laundry room in the apartment. So 4 people sharing a washer and dryer, that's a pretty nice deal. Okay, so this is not exactly what the townhouses will look like, because we are going to have brick townhouses because we are Hanover College, and how dare we do anything but brick. But this is essentially what they look like, but imagine it looking more Hanover-esque. So these will be built, and then so each of those townhouses, 2 stories with 2 bedrooms each. And this next slide shows what the floor plans look like. So on the left is the 2nd floor. So both the bedrooms will be upstairs. Where you see on the right of the bedroom one in each of those it's a walk-in closet. We're actually not going to have a walk-in closet, rather the room will be bigger. So kind of be aware of that. And then on the first floor, living room, dining room. I just got a question. Will the townhouses be finished by fall? Yes. We're hoping to actually show you when the townhouses arrive, which is going to be in the next couple of weeks. We're going to hopefully do some live streams so you all can see what's happening on campus from home. But they are coming in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll finish them up before the fall. So yes, they are available for you all to live in. All right. This next picture is clearly a drawing. It's not real life, but this is what the new stadium house is going to look like. So this will be the house on Clemens Street that will house 12 people in wellness housing. So again, it will probably have more brick, but this is essentially the makeup. What you see on the left side that's brick sticking out is a garage on the mock-up, but it won't have a garage, so it'll basically just cut off where you see the side of the porch cut off and meet the garage. A couple questions. What's the occupancy of the new townhouses? So there's 4 people per townhouse, 3 townhouses, so 12 students will be able to live in the townhouses. Another question was, for group living like this, do you have to have a group of people planned to live with, or can you just show interest and go with random people? So there's kind of 2 parts to that answer. You will have to have a group to apply with, but we're going to also host a virtual meet and greet for anyone looking for groups or looking for roommates to meet each other before the applications are due, and that'll be coming up in the next couple weeks, where you can get on something like this, but we'll actually be able to see each other, talk, meet each other, and see who is looking for roommates, suite mates, housemates, etc., to do an application together with. Because I've heard from a lot of people who want to experience these kinds of housing, and they don't quite have a full group yet. So we will have an opportunity for you to meet folks so that you can put a group together. Good questions. All right, this is the floor plan for the house. You'll see my terrible drawing from my computer of bedroom 6, but essentially this is a 6-bedroom right now. That's my understanding, 6-bedroom house with, let's see, there's a master bath inside one of the bedrooms, which is on the first floor, which is super nice. The living room is being converted into a bedroom because y'all don't need a family room, dining room, and a living room. That's excessive. So we've added another bedroom, and then 4 bedrooms upstairs with 2 bathrooms to share between the 4 rooms. Another question just popped up. If you are in a medical single, can you still be in a townhouse if you have a group? Yes, the answer is all medical accommodations will be decided and sent out before any applications are due. So if someone is approved for a medical single, they can apply for anything, any kind of space they want, knowing that if they're in a room in that space, that it will be a single. So yes to that question. All right, it's time for our first giveaway. So anyone who asked questions or in a drawing, I'm gonna go ahead and do 4 drawings. These are all gonna be gift cards tonight with the exception of our grand prize at the end, because I can mail you gift cards much easier than something big. So here we go for a McDonald's gift card, which may be helpful for drive-through pickup food in our current situation. Cheyenne, you are a winner of a gift card. Also, just so you know, you can win multiple times tonight. I'm not limiting it. So the more questions you ask, the more times you're in the drawing, you can win multiple times, and I'll send you multiple things. All right, another McDonald's gift card. Sushi, you're a winner. Another McDonald's gift card to Emory. And our final McDonald's gift card in this round. Cheyenne, you get a second gift card. Okay, Congratulations on that. All right, we're going to head into the next section of our thing. I did get a quick question. Are we going to talk about the suites in Lynn and Crow? Yes, we're going to talk about every possible type of housing during this session. Another question was, will we go over the dates of when we apply? Yes, you will get all of the dates as well. And then I also got a question. This is about what we just talked about with the stadium house. Would the RA live in that building? Yes, the wellness RA will live in there in a single room. The wellness RA next year is Katarina Rexing, for anyone who's interested in that information. All right. So next thing I'm going to talk about is interest-based housing options. So last night we had our first webinar of info sessions, and that was about the LGBTQ+ housing. If you're interested in that, I recorded that webinar, so you can just email me and I will send you the link. It is by application only on Lynn Hall, second floor, in the suites up there. It's a gender-neutral community, and it's focused on having a safe and inclusive community for LGBTQ+ students and allies. So if you're interested in that and you weren't able to make that webinar, just email me and I'll send that to you. Wellness housing that we just talked about in the stadium house. It is also by application only. It's called interest housing as well. Up to 11 students plus an RA. So when I say 12 students, that includes the RA. And this is a community focused on various dimensions of wellness. So I'm not going to be able to remember them all off the top of my head, but physical wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, all kinds of wellness. So if you think, how do I stay well as a person and be a whole, healthy person, that's what the programming is going to be about in that building. And it is substance-free housing. The wellness webinar is going to be hosted, I think it might be tomorrow. Let me double check. I think it's tomorrow. But check your emails, and I'm going to send a reminder about any webinars for the rest of the week, but we'll have a wellness webinar this week, and I'll send that out so everyone's getting that. So wellness, I got another question. Will the wellness housing be organized by gender dependent on the amount of interest from either males or females? So because we have multiple bathrooms in the house will be mixed gender as long as we're able to fill the space in that way. So whoever applies, whoever gets accepted can live in the house regardless of gender. Where can the application for wellness housing be found? I will be sharing all the applications possible to all of campus. The applications are all on SurveyMonkey, and so you'll get links at some point with those. If you attend the wellness housing webinar, you'll get the link first, so before the rest of campus gets it. And then question, is this for anyone who wants to stay healthy? Yes, healthy as a whole person in all the different ways that you think about health and wellness. So yes, but the biggest thing to realize is it is substance free. So if that is an issue, people need to know no alcohol, tobacco, or drugs in the house or coming back under the influence of those things. So just be aware of that whenever you are applying if you're interested. And Teresa just let me know that wellness webinar is tomorrow. So 8 p.m. tomorrow, there's a link that will go out that you can join to talk about wellness in more depth if you're interested in it. When it comes to living in the house, I have a question about do you have to be a certain major? Absolutely not. You do not have to be a certain major. No issue there. This is truly for anyone who wants a well-rounded, substance-free, healthy community. I got a question. Was there an application link given for the LGBT housing webinar as well? Yes, there's an application link in the webinar, and then so if you want the webinar link so you can watch it and get that application, then yes, email me or put a message in here and we will get to that. Question, are there places in the house to do yoga, etc.? Really great question. There is a living room area or family room, whichever folks want to call it. And yes, that would be a perfect place to do yoga. There will likely be a TV, and so exercise videos, all that can be done in that space. I got 2 questions about, will pricing differences be discussed? Yes, we will talk about that briefly, and I will share where you can find the details of all of the pricing differences. Question about wellness, the wellness house. It does not have a point-based system. None of the interest-based housing are based on points. So when you see me send out info about what you get points for, what you get points taken away for, the wellness, LGBTQ+, multicultural, and global scholars that we'll talk about in a minute, those are all application-based with essays. And so it's completely based off of the desire and need to live in those spaces. With wellness, there's a question about, are there time commitments outside of school for this form of housing? No, not necessarily. It's all about how much you want to be involved, how much you want to attend things, be involved. So no, not necessarily any time commitments. And then do you have to be a certain year to apply for certain housing? The answer for that is no. As long as you are going to be a sophomore, junior, or senior, you can apply for anything and everything you would like. I had the question about, why is there an essay? All of the independent housing has essays involved in some way, shape, or form. So any of the suites, apartments, houses, there's essays. They're short, brief essays, but what we want to know is why people want to live in certain spaces, and we want to give points to people based off those responses. So if you're really interested in a space and you have a really good reason to live there, we want to honor that with our selection process. It's really impossible for us to know people's intention of joining certain kinds of housing unless we ask them those questions. It's very, when I say essay, we're talking short, 250 words-ish. So you're answering some questions that I asked. So it's not like you have to put together an English essay that's, you know, wildly, I don't know, researched and things. This is like a very simple, you're answering questions for us. So all suites, houses, apartments do have some form of essay. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. They're very, very simple. So don't worry yourself too much about that. Question about, for wellness housing, would Hanover be opposed to residents planting or starting a garden near the housing? Is really going to depend on how much of that land it takes. With anything we have with houses, if people want to propose something, we always go through our grounds and ask them. I do know we have community gardens on campus, and so their grounds likes us to use those before we do anything else, but there's certainly opportunities for like flower gardens and things like that around the house to make it look nice and welcoming. So that is an option. All right, I'm going to move on to the next kind of housing. That's global scholars. And this is by application only as well. It's located in File House. It has up to 11 students. And so this is a building that's not mostly, but typically has quite a few international students, because what happens is you can stay free of charge on campus during academic year breaks. So Thanksgiving break, winter break, Christmas break, all of that, you can stay free of charge. And as some of you may know who have stayed on campus during those breaks, typically there is a $10 to $20 charge per night to stay on campus during breaks. So this is a really great opportunity for folks who cannot go home to have a place to stay free of charge. It's typically some international students, some domestic students, a mix, but essentially it's people who want to live in a globally minded community. We have a Global Scholars Housing info session on Thursday, and that will be combined with the multicultural housing info session. So Thursday night at 8, if people are interested in this. I got a question, where is visitor parking for the apartments? For Garrett Street apartments, the only place for visitors to park would be behind the library, behind CFA area. And for the new townhouses, parking will be, let's see, closest visitor parking. I'm not really sure. There might be a few visitor parking spots added to the Science Center parking lot. I know they're going to be putting parking there for the residents of those buildings. Okay. Multicultural housing. So we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but this is, again, by application only, located, not quite sure yet, based on interest, where those folks are wanting to live, how many people it is. We want to make sure we put people in a space that they are excited about and comfortable with. So until we get those applications in, we're not quite sure what that's going to be. But this community will be focused on inclusivity, multiculturalism, and increased support for our diverse students on campus. So this, again, will be part of the webinar on Thursday at 8 if you have an interest in learning more about that. A question about Lynn Hall parking. It is technically behind the library, yes. Some folks can get good spots behind Science Center-ish. It kind of depends on the student parking. But yeah, across the street at the library is typically where most people park. I had a question about, will I explain the point system? I will do that as we look at the applications, because it talks about them a little bit on there as well. Okay, it's time for another giveaway. Hooray. Okay, so we had a lot of questions this last time. There's a lot more names in here. I'm going to be pulling, let's see, what shall we do this time? I'm going to give away 2 red roaster cards, the red conglomeration, red pepper, red pepperoni, red peppermint, red roaster, a card for that, and Taco Bell. So with those, I know that you are going to be leaving. You might need to keep them till fall, but if you're here tomorrow and you want a coffee before you hit the road, that would be a good thing to do. All right, so here we go. For a red roaster gift card, Ethan Rather. Another red roaster card, Bree Hammond. The red various locations card goes to Paige Martin. And a Taco Bell gift card. Ooh, Ethan, you got lucky. You get that too. All right. A couple of questions before we move on. How many students would I like or be able to, or would want to have for the multicultural housing? I am going to have multicultural housing as long as there's interest. So however many people it is what we will do. So I don't have a cutoff point necessarily. And then the question is, do you have to be a part of a particular community for the multicultural housing, or can you just be interested in it? You don't have to be a part of a particular community, but part of the essay for that talks about what is your need to be in an inclusive community that is supportive of diverse student needs. So we would need to know why it is you want to be a part of that community. And so if you have a good reason for wanting to be a part of it, that is great. All right, moving on to the next section. So we're going to go over all the different housing locations that we have. Greenwood Suites. So Greenwood has 10 suites available next year. Typically it has 12 suites. 2 of those suites are for RAs and the hall director. So there'll be 10 available for application. There are 6 people in each suite, and there are 2 bathrooms in each suite. So the way that is separated out is that there are 2 double rooms that share a bathroom between them, and then there's 1 double room that has its own private bath. And so this can be applied for by mixed gender groups. It just has to be in the correct kind of bathroom accommodation. So if you're going to mix it, it needs to be 4 of one gender and 2 of the other, so the bathrooms are shared by gender. All right, we have Ogle. There's going to be 5 suites available in Ogle, and the priority is going to be given to theme applications first. But that's not to say that we will have all outstanding theme applications. So we'll allow folks to apply for this who are not interested in having a theme as well. There are 7 people per suite in Ogle with 3 bathrooms in each suite. And so again, these can be broken up by gender if you want. So if you want to have a mixed gender suite, there's a double room, and a triple room. So we will allow people, so as long as, you know, each room is gendered the same, then we can mix up those suites. I had a question, what do you mean by themes? We will talk about theme housing in a minute, but there's an application type where people can get together who have a common interest and apply to live together, and they do programming, and so that's a theme housing. Another question, is there a point system to get into Greenwood? Yes, and we will talk about that in a minute. It is based off of points. And then a question for Ogle, do you know the possible themes that are being contemplated for next year? Honestly, I have not heard anybody talking about themes at all, so I have no idea. We've had some good ones this year. The archery group, Artemis House, they did awesome work. That one was great. Gosh, we've had so many different things. That one pops up in my mind because they've done such good work this year. But I have no idea what the themes are, so people can get creative and have fun with that. Does each suite and apartment area have a theme to the essay? Yes, a lot of them are very similar. It's talking about behavior, how are you going to keep things clean, how are you going to get along with neighbors, things like that. And I'll show you what some of that looks like in a few minutes. How far can we go on themes? I'm not really sure what that means, but with themes, I'm looking for creativity and things that are really going to get people excited to do programming for their suite and for campus. So whatever people propose, I'm down for whatever. I think it'll be really interesting to see how creative people can get. What are different housing that require a theme? Really, nothing requires a theme, but we're giving preference to themes that are outstanding for Ogle, for Young House, and for Garrett Street House. And I will talk about that in a minute. Do students create themes? I know there's a language one. There is a language one trying to form right now. So I guess that is one I've heard about. But yes, students create the theme. Whatever the group of people have in common and want to arrange their housing around can be arranged. So creativity is good. Are there 3 bedrooms in Ogle? Yes. 2 doubles and a triple in Ogle in each suite. And then what are the most popular housing options right now? It changes absolutely every single year, and I used to think I could predict this, but really I have no idea what's going to be most popular. I think I'll know once the applications open a little bit more, but it's just really hard to predict. Some years everyone wants to live in Greenwood, and the next year no one does. So it's just really hard to tell. And then where do I apply the essay component for Greenwood? So on the application there, and I'll show you all an example of an application in a little bit, the essay gets uploaded to the application. So you'll type it and you just upload it to the application. All right, next kind of housing available, Lynn Hall. There will be 13 suites available. 11 of those suites are 4-person suites. 2 of the suites are 8-person suites. There's 1 bathroom per suite, and so the suites need to be single gender. And when I say 13 suites, that is including the LGBTQ plus housing. So depending on how many people apply for that, typically it's the second floor. We didn't fill the whole second floor this year, but there's a lot of interest. And so we'll kind of see that those decisions get made before the rest of the Lynn Hall applications are due. A couple questions that are really good. Will we talk about medical singles at all tonight? We will talk about it briefly in a few minutes, but if folks have individual questions about medical singles, reach out to me privately so we can talk about your particular situation. Getting the applications in quicker than someone else won't impact things. No, it won't. As long as they're in by the deadline, everyone has an equal opportunity to get housing. So I don't order it by first come first serve or anything like that. And then are suites and houses furnished? Yes, they are. So there will be in suites, you're going to have like a couch, love seat, desks, all that. Same in the houses, you'll have couches and tables and all the normal things you would have in a regular residence hall as well in your room. Are there certain areas of campus you would recommend avoiding? No, not necessarily. Really what happens is housing areas are going to take on the personality of the students who live there. So every year, and this has been my experience for my entire career, every year a location takes on the personality of the people that year. So it can change and it can be really great one year, not so great the next year, and it's all completely dependent on who ends up living there. And so that's kind of the beautiful thing about living in community, is that you can help create what that atmosphere is and really create an environment that you're going to enjoy no matter where you live on campus. Question, if we want the 8-person suite in Lynn, do we apply on the LGBT housing or do Lynn Hall housing? You should do 8-person housing, and I'll show you the applications in a minute, but you'll do the 8-person housing application, not LGBT housing. Question about maintenance requests for suites. Do they work the same as for other living arrangements? Yes, you put your work orders into RAs who will put those in for you, and then they come and work on those when they're able, in the same way that they would in a double room somewhere else on campus. Can you bring your own furniture in as well? Yes, you can always bring your own furniture. It just needs to fit. So don't get too excited. Make sure you try to check out what the room looks like first. Since you'll be leaving campus, once you find out what housing you're in, we'll have some opportunities to do some virtual tours and take pictures and things like that. So we'll make sure that we let you all see what a space looks like before you start planning, to bring a futon that might not fit. A question about damages. If you're in a suite and nobody owns up to a damage that happens, will all of the residents be fined? The answer is yes. If it's in a bedroom, it's the 2 people who live in the bedroom. If it's in a common room, everybody splits the damages. Will we have to supply soap, paper towels, toilet paper, etc. for suites and houses, or will it be provided? WFF, our housekeeping services, provides soap, paper towels, and toilet paper for all the suites and houses. What we won't be providing is cleaning supplies, so that is something you would need to arrange who's going to bring what to clean the toilet, clean the sinks, wipe down the mirrors, things like that. Okay, when will the application for Lynn come out? All of the applications are going to go live tomorrow because I have them all ready. And so applications will go live tomorrow. They aren't due until in April. So those will come out very quickly. And then when will we find out where we're living? If you check out the calendars I sent out via email as attachments on emails that I've been sending out, it tells you exactly what day each of the different types of housing learns whether or not they were accepted to that location. Do you need a certain GPA to live in Lynn or Crow? No, you don't need a certain GPA, but GPA is factored in to the point system. And when we talk about the point system, I will explain that. All right, Crow Hall. There are 8 suites available. There are 4 suites for men. 3 of them will house 4 men, and one of them will house 3 men. It's kind of like a giant triple, but also with a common area and things like that. And then 4 of them are going to be for women, and all 4 of those will house 4 women. And then also in Crow, there's primarily double rooms. Then there's also 1 triple and 1 quad for women in the basement. I'm sorry if you can hear my child crying in the background. He's fine. Culture. Culture will be primarily double rooms with 1 triple for women and 1 quad for women, and 1 double suite on the first floor that has an in-suite bathroom. And that I have not decided yet if it will be male or female. So TBD on that, but it will be part of double room selection later down the road. All right, now houses. We have the Garrett Street house, which is 7 to 11 students, depending on if we decide to use the basement, because the basement can technically have 4 people living in it. There are 3 bathrooms in the house. There's a full kitchen and in-house laundry. Young House can house 6 to 7 students, has 2 bathrooms with in-house laundry. And then, like I was talking about earlier with theme housing, priority is going to be given to exemplary theme applications, but you do not have to do a theme to apply to live in the houses. Question, does housekeeping work in the same way as they do in the bathrooms and shared halls? No, you are responsible in suites, apartments, and houses to clean your own bathrooms, but the toilet paper and paper towels gets dropped off. Okay, time for another giveaway. I'm gonna do, let's see. I'm gonna do an Amazon and 3 more McDonald's. All right, Bree Hammond, you're getting a McDonald's. Yosef Ajiri, you're getting a McDonald's. Sushi, you're gonna get another McDonald's. You're gonna have a big old McDonald's meal one night. And then the Amazon card is going to Jeffrey Curtis. A few more questions came in. Do you have to be in a certain class for the houses? No, you don't have to be in a certain class, but seniors get an addition, get more points for being seniors. So it's all going to depend on points for those, or depending on theme applications. If we have a really good theme, we don't consider class for those. Do all the non-freshman dorms have air conditioning? Yes, all air conditioned. We are not using Wiley for upper class students next year, so everything has air conditioning. So no need, if you're someone who has had a medical, if you're a first year student who's had a medical accommodation for air conditioning, you do not need to worry about that because you'll have air conditioning no matter what. All right. Question about the toilet paper drop off. We have a lot of toilet paper questions. I think people have toilet paper on their mind because there's no toilet paper in the world right now. Staff do not come inside to drop toilet paper. Typically, they leave it outside, or we'll give it to the RA who will deliver it to you. All right. Next section. We're going to talk about applications now. I know everyone's dying to talk about applications. So here are the deadlines. This is when we're going to talk about medical accommodations just briefly. So if you are someone who needs an ESA or has an ESA, or you're hoping for medical accommodation, so you need a single room for some reason, or you need to be on a first floor for some reason, or have elevator, things like that, those medical accommodation requests are due April 3rd. So that's coming up fairly quickly. Those are all applied for via the accessibility services page. I sent that out in an email, but I will send out those links again whenever I send out all the application links. but you have to upload your own documentation from your doctor or mental health provider, and you need to make sure the documentation is good and thorough. And if you have questions about what the documentation needs to entail, you're not quite sure, you've not done it before, you can email me and I can give you some tips and tricks for that. But again, due April 3rd. Then interest-based housing, so those 4 areas we talked about, LGBTQ+, wellness, global scholars, multicultural, those are due April 6th. April 6th. Theme housing due April 8th, so that's for Ogle and Garrett Street and Young House. Those are due April 8th. I forgot to put 8-person housing on here because that's the 2 in Lynn, but the 8, 7, 6, 4, 3-person housing applications are all due April 8th as well. All right, so I'm going to stop and answer questions about deadlines before I open up some example applications for you to see. What if we get accepted for a suite house with a group of people, then one of them decides over the summer not to come back or they move out? Great question. In the application, it will tell you exactly what that means. Typically, we ask you to find a replacement. If you can't find a replacement, we might give you a replacement. And if we don't have a replacement or you can't find a replacement, we sometimes, depending on space, will allow people to buy out their single, but that's all going to be very dependent on space. Soap. You do not have to put the soap in the dispensers. I guess in houses, you don't have traditional soap dispensers. You actually just like have soap. In the suites, you do have a dispenser, I believe, and they would give you the little bags to put in if needed. I think very rarely do folks run out of soap. I don't know that I've been asked for soap all year. I have been asked for toilet paper and paper towels though. If we applied last year for medical accommodations, do we need new paperwork? Yes, you have to apply for medical accommodations every single year with updated documentation from your medical provider. And just to reiterate about medical accommodations, medical singles are not guaranteed with documentation. We are going to have to, due to space constraints, because of Donner Hall being offline next year, all of our spaces are going to have to be quite full. So we're only going to be able to give medical singles to people who have absolute medical necessity. So we will take all the medical accommodation requests. A group will get together from accessibility services, health services, counseling services, and me, and we will review every single one, and we'll kind of put them in order of most critical for medical needs to least critical for medical needs, and then we'll offer them out as we're able to based on space. But yes, if you've had medical accommodations in the past, you need to reapply. I've got a lot of questions, so I want to make sure I check them all real quick. Okay, if a group does not get accepted for their type of housing, so if you don't get what you're hoping for, what happens is then you go into our general housing selection process, which is not application based, and that is all of the double rooms in Crow and Culture, as well as anything that doesn't get selected through the application process. So let's say I get, 16 applications for Greenwood. I know that I can only offer 10 out, but 7 of them are ineligible because they had violations that made them ineligible, and I still have 1 suite left. We'll open that up again for people to apply as part of the general selection process. So there might be other opportunities to apply for things, even if you don't get it the first time around. But if you don't get into some of these locations that are suite houses, apartments, things like that, then the double room locations will be what you will select from. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because I think the next slide might actually be that question. What all housing can fit physical need accommodations? That is a super great question. I would say definitely Crow does well with physical needs. Culture does really well because there's an elevator that goes down to the basement for laundry and up to the 3rd floor. So I would say Culture is the best physical need accommodation location. We do have handicap accessible suite in Greenwood that might be a good option. Those would be the places that I would suggest the most. If you're able to utilize like stepping into a bathtub type thing, then also Ogle would work well because that's all on first floor. What would be the best for mental needs? So if you have a mental health concern that needs special accommodations, I would say anywhere and everywhere would be fine for that and good for that, because it's really just a matter of accommodating you in a place that's going to be supportive of your mental health. So where you end up, if it's a place you're interested in, that's going to be a good place for you to be. For medical accommodation rooms, are those rooms assigned or will applicants be given a choice? It sort of depends. Whenever I get the medical accommodation, depending on what it is for, I will send out a room assignment based off what it's for. And then if that room assignment won't work for you, you're planning on something else, you could apply for other things, and then we would just swap it if you got into something else where that medical accommodation could still be accommodated. So, so it's kind of yes to both questions. Question about if we apply for interest-based housing, should we also apply for a double room? So the great thing is you're going to know if you get into interest-based housing before double rooms can even be selected. So apply for it. If you don't get it, then you'll do the double room. It's not. We do them all with different days that you find out if you received it in an order separated out, so that if you don't get one, you can try for the next thing. Can I apply for multiple housing options? Yes. Apply for anything and everything you would like. The dates for when we find out about our selection was listed in the email with the calendar that I sent out, correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay. So this is the question we got. So if you don't get housing via applications, what does that mean? If all suites are not filled out or not filled by the selection process, we'll reopen applications. And then actually, before we get into this, I'm going to pop over to the applications and show you what a few of them look like. Bear with me. So they will be on SurveyMonkey. So here's an example application. I'm going to show you as best I can what that looks like. So this is for houses. So when you get the link, if you're like, oh, I'm interested in a house, you'll come on here and it'll give you all the details you need to know. So the application is due by April 8th, no late applications. Here's the really critical part. Every person needs to fill out their own application. So if you're a group of 7, let's say, and you're interested in both Garrett Street and Young House, all 7 people have to fill out their own application. So if you've done housing before, that wasn't the case. But because we are going to an online format, we need to make sure that everybody is telling us that they are indeed interested. We used to have one application, everyone signed it. It is impossible for you all to sign from all the different corners of the world that you're going to be going to. And so everyone needs to fill out their own application. So this is where we get for like criteria and points and things like that. You cannot be on disciplinary or academic probation. You cannot have any significant alcohol violation, any drug violation, or any other serious conduct violations. You can't have past due financial obligations, and you have to have your returning student deposit paid. So that's how you become eligible to even apply. And then once you apply, we go into the point process. So points are going to be based on your class standing as listed by the registrar's office. So if you are a rising sophomore, you get 2 points. If you're a rising junior, you get 3 points. And if you're a rising senior, you get 4 points. And so then you would add however many points you get there to your cumulative GPA. So if you have a 2.5, you get 2.5 points. And then we do deductions based off policy violations and damage and fine history. This is super duper important as you're moving out, Make sure you don't have damages, and make sure you're actually checking out with your RAs right now, because we'll be deducting points based off of fines and damages from last year if you're a returning student, and if you're a first year student from the checkout that's happening right now. The next part is a section about occupancy. So this is the question about what if somebody leaves? What if somebody goes abroad? What if this? What if that? This will explain all of that. So make sure you read that carefully. And then we talk about what it means to live in autonomous living. So you're going to be required to clean your own space, recycle, remove garbage, maintaining the cleaning throughout the year. So having cleaning supplies. We won't provide those items, and so it's going to be up to you all to decide how you're going to ensure that the cleanliness is maintained. And when it's not, there are fines for additional cleaning at the end of the year. Then we'll go into the part about the part where you fill it out, the application. So your name, your gender identity, student ID number, what class year you're going to be. And I will tell you this right now, this is a tip and trick. Do not lie on this, because I double check everything. And if you lie on it, I don't like that. And so that doesn't bode well. So be honest on this. Same with cumulative GPA. Write down your cumulative GPA. I'm going to check that. Don't lie about it. I'm going to check it. And then you will list everyone that is applying with you. So everyone's filling out their own application, of course. You're going to list their names, and then I'm going to double check that they have submitted an application. Very important, if I don't get an application from one of your group members, the group isn't eligible to be considered. So make sure everyone is applying. You can always email me and check, did everyone in my group apply? And I can tell you where you stand. But if someone doesn't apply by the deadline, I won't be considering the application group. And then to answer questions about the essay, everyone will submit their own. They're going to upload it to the application. You just are going to tell me, why do you want to live in the space? What's your plan to hold people accountable to college policies? What's your policy for guests going to be? How are you going to make sure things are kept clean, and how are you going to get along with your neighbors? So when I say essays, it's answering a flurry of questions. It's just going to be some simple things. You're also going to review our housing contract terms and conditions. You're also going to agree that everything you have put on there is truthful. And then this is where the financial part comes in. Every application at the end tells you exactly how much you would be paying. If you have questions before you decide to apply, so you're not going through every single application seeing how much, you can jump on the housing page of My Hanover. So Campus Life, housing, and the main page here has all the rates listed right there. Also, as we're doing webinars, if you're unable to join in on them, the webinars are on this page as well, and you can just click and watch from here. All right, so that is an example application. They're all a little bit different, but once I send them out, you can click through them all and see which ones you're going to apply for and start working on those. Okay, I'm going to jump to the Q&A because I talked for a while and I'm sure there are a lot here. How long does it typically take to find out if you got the housing you wanted? After the due date, it's really fast after that. Within a day or two after the due date, you will find out. What happens if the preference of housing for each person in a group for a suite is different? That is a great question. Basically, so let's say, okay, so that was an example on this application. Was it? No, it wasn't. Let me show you a different application real quick. Let's do 4-person because that has the most options. Okay. So for 4-person, we talked about all the options there are. There's Garrett Street, Young House Apart, or Young Street townhouses, Coulter, Crow. I mean, there's just so many options to pick from. On your application, you will rank order the ones you're interested in. So what I would encourage you to do is for your group to talk about which ones you're most interested in, because at some point I'm just going to have to do a like an average of what everyone in your group has said and pick something for you if you're eligible. So it would be better if you all come up with something together, and then based off points, I'll go down the list, and whichever one you're eligible for that you're interested in, you'll receive. So yeah, I would talk with your group first and not have everyone on a completely different page. Question about points. If you have more points than others in your group, what happens? All the points are added cumulatively. So if you have a bunch of points, someone else has fewer, you all are just adding points up to create a final point total for your group. And then I assign housing out based off of most number of points from a group, and then work my way down. So if you have more points, great. Your group's going to like you because you're bringing them the points. How can we find out what our cumulative GPA is? Great question. I'm going to show you. On My Hanover, academic, student, where am I? View unofficial transcript. You'll click on it. It'll make you an unofficial transcript. I'm not going to open it because then you'll see my transcript from college, and that's pretty funny. I did well, but I'm going to cover up. No, you can see it now. You now see my GPA. How embarrassing. No, I did well. So that's how you find your cumulative GPA. Check the unofficial transcript. It'll show up. How many points do sophomores get for your year only? If you're a rising sophomore, you'll bring in 2 points. Why is the LGBTQ plus housing 500 to 700 words? It does not have to be that long. We've just found that people have a lot of things they want to share with us about why they're being selected, because those are selected blindly. And so all we have to go off of with the group selecting it is what is in that, that essay. Will I use your final GPA for this semester or your GPA from last semester? So it's your cumulative GPA based off of courses you have completed. You will not have completed winter term courses until after housing selection is done. So it's based off, if you're a first year student, it's only based off your first semester GPA because that's all we have to go on. Okay, regarding point deduction, are the amount of points deducted based on the circumstance, or is there a set amount? Yes, it is. There's a certain amount of points that get deducted based on circumstance. One of the emails I sent out at the very, very beginning when I first started talking about housing selection kind of laid that out. So like for fines, I think between like $1 and $50, it's -1 point. Between $51 and $100, I'm just making up these numbers, something like that, is -2 points, and so on and so forth. So if you have a ton of fines, let's say you had $1,400 worth of fines, nobody did, but that would be many more points deducted than, oh, I forgot to check out $10, you know? So it really just depends. And the severity of like how many alcohol violations, how many, it really just depends on the circumstance, but those are all set point deductions. If I didn't attend Hanover my first semester, will my points only be from sophomore status with no GPA points? Ooh, really good question. That has not happened to me very much. If you are a transfer student and you don't have a Hanover GPA yet, you can send me your unofficial transcript from your previous institution, and we can use those GPA points if you would like to get points, which I'm sure you would like to have. For interest housing, does listing members of the group have to happen, or is that an individual application? Completely individual application for all of the interest housing. But if you have a person you want to live with, a particular person, you can put that person down. They also have to apply, but if you're a mutual group and you know you want to live together in a certain space, you can apply together. Can a suite member be moved from the living space if they cause continual problems? That's an interesting question. We ask you all to fill out suite mate contracts and roommate contracts, we cannot remove somebody from their housing location based off of a roommate or suite mate complaint. But if they are violating their contract or violating college policy, then we can. But that's why it's really, really important that you are doing suite mate, roommate contracts when you move in, because then that becomes a contract, and if it's violated, it becomes a policy violation. Okay. I feel sad for this question. I lived in Wiley this year, and I've had to pay fines due to destructive habits of my hallmates. Will I be deducted points despite never causing damages? Potentially, and that's going to depend on checkout damages. I'm not going to pull up the fines for, let's say everyone had a $10 fine one time. I'm not going to pull that up. I'm pulling up checkout fines. So if you don't have checkout and closing fines, you should be fine. But it's all very dependent on the situation and which hall you lived in and all that. So I'm sorry I can't answer that completely, but we can talk one-on-one if you have questions. Okay, if you do not get group housing, is there a greater chance to be in the same hall with those individuals? There's no way to know for sure. If you don't get into a suite or apartment or house, you're going to pick which room you're in from a floor plan in a double room. And so you can look and see who's living around you and pick a room next to somebody. You'll actually see the floor plan and see who's living in which room whenever you do that selection. And that will all be sent. Double room selection information will only be sent to those people who have to participate in that. So I'm not going to go over all those details because most people won't be a part of double room selection. The majority of our rooms are going to be in suites, houses, and apartments. Are Garrett Street apartments theme-based as well? No, they are not theme-based, but there is an essay, but it's like the house one that I just showed you about cleanliness and behavior and getting along with your neighbors. Okay, and then a question about how do we get to the accommodation application? Email me and I will resend you the link if you need an accommodation application. Okay. Will we still have access to recycling containers? Yes, the recycling containers are going to be available next year. You just have to check them out in Student Life and return them at the end of the year. We don't have enough to provide all of campus, but we want to make sure everyone who needs one and wants one has one. All right, so I'm going to go back to my slides. Okay. Okay, so if you don't get housing via applications, we will reopen applications if there's any not filled. And then what will happen is, and I promise you this will all be sent with much detail if you are going to have to do this, but you will use housing.hanover.edu to pick a room when your time slot comes. What you can do, regardless of if you think you're going to end up doing a double or not, is you can start logging into housing.hanover.edu starting tomorrow to make roommate requests. So if you know, okay, I want to make sure I have my roommate selected so that if I end up having to do a double, that is in the system, you can go ahead and start doing that tomorrow. What I will say is anything you put in housing.hanover.edu does not apply to any of the suites or applications. So if you put in a roommate request on housing.hanover.edu, that does not impact anything with the applications. That only impacts double rooms. So please note that. And then roommate requests have to be mutual. Both of you need to confirm each other on housing.hanover.edu. And then the double room selection. So for Crow and Culture, if you're a senior, you select on April 10th, junior, April 11th, sophomore, April 12th. You will log in on that morning early, bright and early. It'll show you a floor plan and you can see which rooms are available at that time. Essentially, when you log in, if a room is showing red, it's full. If it's showing green, it's empty and you can pick it. If it's showing yellow, it means one person has put themselves in. And if you are looking for a roommate, you can see who that person is in that room and you can plop yourself in with them if you'd like. On here it does say So if you are a rising senior and you want to live with a rising sophomore, you pick at 7 a.m. And as long as you have both confirmed each other as roommates, you just pull your rising sophomore roommate right into the room and they don't have to worry about doing anything. All right. So tips and tricks. We're nearing the end here, so hang with me. We have tips and tricks to make you be as successful as possible. So make sure your returning student deposit is submitted. There are very few students who have not done that at this point, but if you haven't, you must have that in before you can apply for housing. You can submit as many applications as you want. So the more you try, the more your chances increase because you're applying for more things. But if you don't tell me what order you want me to consider your applications in, I'm gonna have to make a choice. And once I offer you housing and put you in it, I can't change that. So if you're applying for a bunch of different things, I need to know which one you want most so that I can make that choice easier and not just based off of what I want to do. So spend time on essays that are required. They're required for the application. So these are scored fairly subjectively. So the more time you spend, the better your scores will be, and it can make a difference. And then the final tip is to make sure you're being super honest with the people you're applying with, because if you are ineligible because you had an alcohol violation, don't apply with people because then they're going to be ineligible and they're going to be very sad. So be very, very honest about the points you're bringing in. So yeah, that's just helpful. I had a question, if you, or do I want you to email me with which ones, what order you want me to consider your applications in? Yes, you can do that, and I will just attach that to the applications I get so that I know which ones to look at first. Okay, more drawings. Okay, this time we are going to do a $25 Hulu card. So this is going to be super helpful from being at home for over the next several weeks. So a $25 Hulu card and then also a Netflix card. And I don't know, it's either $15, $20, or $25, not sure which because it doesn't say. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling some names. Hulu, $25 goes to Yosef Ajiri. And Netflix, Mark Albers. Okay, so now I'm going to do a Q&A session. So any questions you still have, go ahead and shoot them up on the question and answer wall. In a minute, when we're done doing questions and answers, I'm going to pull one grand prize person, and you get an extra point on your housing application. This is like the biggest prize you could ever get. Well, for housing, it's the biggest prize you could get for housing. All right, any questions? All right, here they come. How do we get to the applications for housing? I'm going to be sending out an email tomorrow that has the links to every housing application and the deadlines. Can I show or discuss pricing for the different housing options? I thought I did, but let me just really quickly show you again on my Hanover. Housing options are, or housing pricing options are here on the main page of housing. So Campus Life, housing, this is all of the prices. Will the group housing have a space in the contract for the living room and shared spaces? Absolutely, yes. We want you to talk about how you're going to manage your shared living spaces. Within a suite, can 2 people have an ESA? Yes, technically, but if they don't get along, we're going to have an issue and then end up having some requirements for those ESAs. So you need to make sure they can get along and that it's a reasonable amount of space to accommodate the ESA and the sizes that they are. So that's really important to think about before you put yourself in a situation where it might not work out. So really think about that. If we apply for a double by ourselves, will we be put in a lower priority? No. So you won't actually apply for the double. You'll actually go on during your time slot and pick it. So grab the room you want, and then that room will show yellow, and then somebody else who is also looking for a double by themselves can see that you're in it and put themselves in it with you. So you get to pick the room. If there are multiple people who are picking rooms by themselves, I consolidate. So I pick which room people get consolidated into. So just be aware of that. You might pick room 113 and then someone else picked 115. I'm going to pick one person to move into one of the rooms with the other person. So just know that that is the way that will work. Does flex dollars change based on housing for sophomores through seniors? Nope. Everyone who lives on campus, regardless of if you have a kitchen, is required to have a meal plan, and depending on the meal plan you choose is how many flex dollars you get. Does a point system apply in regards to possible singles that are not medical accommodations? So if I have any ability to do singles that are not medical accommodations, it is completely based off first come, first serve on the day that your selection opens. So during that double room selection, if there are singles, they'll show up on there. So rising seniors have the best opportunity to receive those if they're not already going to be in other housing. So it's first comes, first serve based on day you're eligible. For the townhouses, were there any themes or interests needed? Nope. That is simply applying for a applying on the 4-person application, no theme necessary. When do applications open? Tomorrow. For those who joined late, are they eligible for the prize? Yes, because every person who has asked a question, every time they ask a question, their name gets put in the drawing. So yes, eligible for the grand prize. Is there financial aid specifically for housing? No, there is not, but certainly it is always good to talk with the Office of Financial Aid if you have questions or want to see how your financial aid might be impacted by the cost of the housing you select. How will the virtual meet and greet with random people work? So what I'll have folks do is they'll sign up to be a part of the virtual meet and greet, and they're going to tell me sort of what they're looking for, and then I will host a here's this person, this is the kind of thing they're looking for. Do you have anything you want to say to other people in the group? And so it'll literally be a Zoom meeting, but where you can see people's faces. So you can talk to each other on the screen and meet people and see if you can find a good match for a roommate or jump in on a suite that's looking for more people. Is the meal plan the same every year? Yes, the meal plans, as far as I know, aren't changing at all. The cost does change every year, and I don't know what that's been set out for next year, but it is almost always the same. Will a single cost extra regardless of location? It costs extra if it is a non-medical single. Medical singles are charged the lowest possible rate. So if you look on my page right now that I have up, it says what singles cost. Certainly if it's a single room in a house and it's not medical, it is a much bigger upcharge, costs you a lot more money than if you're in a medical single or in like a single in culture, for example. Let's see. Are medical singles located in any building, or are they located in one building? They could potentially be anywhere.